Hey, welcome back to Domain to Genus. Growing up, there was one thing I really loved to do: learn about animals, particularly the obscure and strange. So, once I learned of a game series where I could travel the land, collecting and learning about all the world's creatures, I was hooked. I'd like to combine these two pastimes of mine properly now, though, and use the games I grew up with as a kind of springboard to talk about the species behind it. With that said, today's the day we find out if I can beat Pokemon Emerald with only one Armaldo. Armaldo and its pre-evolution Anorith are a fossil Pokemon introduced in the third Pokemon generation, with decent stats and a dual Bug-Rock typing. Rock because the Pokemon usually has to be restored from a fossil, and Bug because it's based on an Arthropod? Despite its bug typing, Anorith and Armaldo could only learn one bug-type move in their original appearances, and learned only two rock-type moves by level up, so we won't be able to make full use of our type until later on in the game. Pokemon doesn't really use bug in the way we would, and instead just sort of applies it to whatever creatures they feel like. Anorith and Armaldo are actually inspired by members of the order Radiodonta, an extinct lineage of arthropods that died off during the Devonian period. More specifically, they seem to be based on radiodonts of the Cambrian genus Anomalocaris, meaning abnormal shrimp. Anomalocaris are often thought of as some of the earliest recorded apex predators, so it makes sense that the Pokemon equivalent's attack stat is so high. With that background info out of the way, let's go over the rules. In battle, I will only be able to use Anorith and Armaldo. I'll be able to use other Pokemon outside of combat for HMs. In Gen 3, there are required double battles to progress the game, for which I will need a second Pokemon. This is the only exception to Rule 1. No items in battle except for held items or Pokeballs, and no glitches or exploits. To start with, I used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to replace Torchic with Anorith as our starter. I picked to replace Torchic so that our rival has Mudkip, probably the hardest starter for us to fight. I name him John. John has a quirky nature, befitting his abnormal inspiration, and the ability Battle Armor, which will prevent him from taking critical hits. This ability is going to be really good. The only move that John knows right now is Scratch, but we resist normal type moves, so we are able to readily best our rival May. At level 7 we learn the move Harden. Anomalocaris did have an exoskeleton, but it was not mineralized as the exoskeletons of things like crabs are. We arrive in Petalburg, supervise Wally catching a Ralts, and are sent off to Rustborough to begin our gym challenge. The route to Rustborough is pretty uneventful, except for this one encounter I had, where I forgot to top up John's power points, and so spent the whole time just wasting for them to feint me. They could only do 1 damage a turn, and my only move available was Harden. If we didn't have that move, we probably could have won with the move Struggle. The defense move cost us our life. I just think it's funny. We make it to Rustborough without further incident and try the gym. Roxanne specializes in rock types, so it's a brutally long game just to defeat even the first trainer in the gym. We don't have any moves that are good against rock types, but the one advantage we do have is we can crit them, but they can't crit us. We reach Roxanne at level 12. I don't think we can beat her, but we might as well give it a try. Nope, guess we turned John back into a fossil because he was just crushed under a ton of rocks. We grind up to level 19, at which point John learns the move Water Gun. It kind of makes sense that Anorith's first learned attack after hatching is Water Gun, as they were marine creatures. Heck, in later games they can even have the ability Swift Swim, which would make them faster in rain. Despite all this, Anorith and Armaldo aren't water types and are, instead, super weak to water. Makes sense. I tried to fight Roxanne again, and whilst we clear her Geodude fine, Nosepass is too bulky for us to muscle through. I decide to train John against Roxanne, as her Geodudes are the best EXP we can get in this area. I'm not expecting to win, when on my 8th try we get a critical hit with Water Gun whilst Nosepass is at half health, taking it down. In fact, I was so pessimistic about my chances that I actually wasn't recording at the time. Oops. After Nosepass is another Geodude, so we take it out easily and receive the Stone Badge and the TM for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is one of the 4 total rock moves that John can learn, so I teach it to him to give us some better type coverage. After our battle with Roxanne, the Devon Corporation tasks us with a parcel and a letter, so we're setting sail to deliver mail. We arrive first in Dewford Town to deliver a letter from the president of the corporation. But first, a gym battle! Brawley's fighting gym is suspiciously dark, and I think it's meant to represent the depths of the ocean? We're up against an unfavourable type matchup and in an unfamiliar environment, as many Anomalocaris species were found in shallow, tropical seas, not the ocean's depths. In our first battle against Brawley, we actually do quite well. His Machop takes us to very low health, but we defeat his Meditite without taking damage before falling to his Makahita. I train against the rest of the gym trainers, and then level against Brawley himself. On our 5th go, John is level 23. We take down Machop in 3 turns, then Meditite sets up Reflect. Brawley and Meditite try to stall us out, but all they do is end up wasting the Reflect they set up, and both of Brawley's potions. Last out is Makahita. Makahita starts with a bulk up to raise its defense, and we take it to 2/3 of its health. Then, we get super lucky, and John lands a critical hit, ending Makahita on its 2nd turn. We take the Knuckle Badge and head out to find the letter's recipient. We deliver the letter to a man named Stephen Stone in Granite Cave, and then make our way to Slateport City to deliver the parcel to one Captain Stern. Afterwards, I made my way north of Slateport and took on the Trick House. Whilst challenging the trainers here, John reached level 25 and learned the move Metal Claw. As I mentioned earlier, the exoskeletons of Anomalocaris was mostly not mineralized. Instead, Anomalocaris used sclerotization to reinforce their bodies and claws, a process that uses complexes of proteins which have been likened to the keratin used in our fingernails. With all that said, our next fight is against our rival May, and despite taking out her first 2 Pokemon, I suddenly realise we've gained Metal Claw at the expense of the only move that wasn't resisted by her starter Pokemon Marshtomp. I try again at level 27, and with a critical Rock Tomb, we manage to take Marshtomp down. I'm really not looking forward to our later fights against other Water-type trainers. We arrive in Morville City and head to face Watson at the Electric Gym. We make it past his first 2 team members no problem, but then Magneton comes out, and we're stuck. No moves that are effective, and we're not strong enough to outpower him. Maybe we could beat him with better luck, but for now I think I'll train. I retry the gym with each level I gain, and eventually John learns the move Ancient Power at level 37. Ancient Power is better damage, has better accuracy, but fewer power points than Rock Tomb. We should be able to clear Watson with this though. John must have wanted to win this too, as with his first Ancient Power, all of his stats were raised. We one-shot Voltorb and Electrike, 2-shot Magneton, but are paralysed as we face off with Manectric. I try to lower its health with a few water guns, and eventually get it to a low enough point where I'm confident to knock it out with our last Ancient Power. We win the fight, and Watson hands us the Dynamo Badge. After Watson's gym, I'm gonna be honest, I got lost. My first Pokemon generation was Gen 4, so this is my first time actually playing this game. It's good, I recommend it. Whilst I was pottering around, I raised Anorith to level 40, when it would normally evolve into Armaldo, but I held off on John evolving until level 43. This way, John can learn the move Fury Cutter, his only bug-type move, 3 levels earlier than he would have otherwise. Then he immediately evolves. If Anorith was a fairly biologically accurate representation of an Anomalocaris, then Armaldo is... well, it's complicated. You'll mind if I derail the gameplay to talk about anatomy? No? Good. So, Armaldo, a name that is described as being deriven from the words armour and ald from the Old Saxon meaning old. Armaldo is also described as a combination of an Anomalocaris with a dinosaur. But let's take a look at the wider order of Radiodonta for possible parallels. Firstly, legs. Whilst the kind of legs seen on Armaldo definitely did not exist among Radiodonts, there is some interesting discussion about the evolution of arthropod legs in general to be had here. You see, most Radiodont fossils, before the 1990s, were interpreted as having a pair of flaps, yes, flaps, on each segment of the radiodont's body. But in 1995, 3 scientists named Hu, Bergstrom, and Alberg, I'm probably butchering those pronunciations, described the fossil of Cucumericris decoratus from a Cambrian deposit in southwest China. Now, the fossil of Cucumericris they described was incomplete, missing the famous frontal appendages that are used in sorting out the radiodont's family tree. But it did have a set of appendages that have been described as walking legs. These legs looked a bit like this. So, Armaldo's legs are feasibly possible, if anatomically unlikely. The legs of Cucumericris have been suggested to be the precursor to the ventral flaps found along the bodies of other radiodonts. I specify ventral flaps because in 2015, another new species of radiodont was described. Aegirocassis benmule was described by another trio, Van Roy, Daley, and Briggs, as having dorsal flaps, as well as the ventral flaps most famously seen on other radiodonts such as Anomalocaris. The large wing-like structures on Armaldo's back could be seen, therefore, as dorsal flaps, although dorsal flaps were usually smaller than the ventral flaps, and the discovery of Aegirocassis was 13 years after Pokémon Emerald's release, so... Speaking of the ventral flaps, the 3 pairs seen on Armaldo's neck bear resemblance to the 3 head flaps, or reduced flaps, found on the radiodont species Amplectobelua symbrachiata. It's also thought that Anomalocaris canadensis had 3 head flaps too, but the fact that the neck of Armaldo also has 3 blue segments is a really nice detail, because each segment of the body had its own pair of flaps. Okay, lecture over. Let's get back to the game. A nice easy battle next, as we face off against the fire gym leader Flannery. We wash her out with water gun, and finish off Torkoal with an ancient power to take the heat badge. Our battle against Norman didn't go as smoothly though. We managed to faint his first 2 members in 1 hit each with ancient power, but then slacking comes out. I'd had John hold a berry to curative sleeping status on a hunch that there'd be a sleeping move in this gym, and although that paid off, I wasn't prepared for Slacking's counterattacks. I think we can do this if I just plan a little better. I retried Norman once more, then fought all the other trainers in his gym to get another level at least. I get fainted twice more, once by one of the random trainers in the gym using counter. Luckily, John knows water gun, which should give me an edge, as long as I remember to use it. We take out Norman's Spinder and Vigoroth again, and this time we hit Slacking with water gun. It's slow, but it's safe. We eventually take Slacking to half health, from which point we can finish the battle off with ancient power, earning us the balance badge. Next, we head up to Route 119. I wasn't going to mention the Weather Institute on this route originally, because the story stuff here didn't seem all that important and there were no challenging fights. But after saving the scientists from Team Aqua, people who want the sea level to rise, we are gifted a cast form. Now, obviously, we can't use cast form itself in the challenge, but it does carry an item which boosts the power of water-type moves, Mystic Water. I give this to John to help cover our low special attack stat. We then arrive in Four Tree Town, and are ready to take on Winona's flying gym at level 53. We have 2 gym trainer battles in her gym back to back, where on the first turn of the first fight, we get brought to 1 health from Endeavour. To ensure John didn't faint, I used Ancient Power through both of these 2 trainer fights, but I didn't top up John's power points before facing Winona. Because of this, we get stalled out by her Skarmory long enough that John's on just 6 health when her Tropius comes out. Needless to say, we lost the fight. Damn, I know that flight wasn't even a thing when Anomalocaris lived, but I didn't think we'd be this out of luck against it. I train against the gym folk I skipped on my first attempt and get John to level 54. We take out Winona's Swablu with 1 Metal Claw, no problem, then I bait out her Pelipper's Protect before taking it out with Ancient Power, raising all our stats in the process. Between the stats raise and John's held Mystic Water, we're able to take Skarmory out in 2 Water Guns, Tropius out in 1 Ancient Power, and then out comes Winona's Altaria. I tried to be a bit cheeky and see if I could get away with taking Altaria out the same way I did her Swablu, Altaria's pre-evolution. Altaria hangs on, then paralyzes us, but eats a berry so that it stays out of potion range. We get hit twice more, but one more Metal Claw is enough to win us the fight, getting John to level 55, where he learns the move Slash, which I use to replace Fury Cutter. Now seems like a good time to talk about the claws that John has, seeing as they're the focus of a lot of his moves, and also the fossil that Anorith/Armaldo comes from in-game. The claws of radiodonts are more commonly known as frontal appendages. Like in Anorith, the frontal appendages of radiodonts were preoral. On humans, this would be akin to them growing from our top lips. These appendages were most likely used for catching food, as they had many long barbs known as endites on them. Some frontal appendages, like Anomalocaris, were very much like those seen in Anorith and Armaldo. Others, like those of Amplectobelua, were modified to look more like the pincers of a crab or a scorpion. And some, like those of the giant Edgecombe, had endites modified with auxiliary spines that acted like the baleen of large whales, making those radiodont species filter feeders. Back in the game, I've just seen Team Aqua steal a submarine, and have made my way to Moss Deep City where I'm hoping I can find something to let me follow them. I instead find the Psychic Gym. This gym is headed by a pair of twins who use double battles, technically making solo Pokemon runs of this game impossible. I save, and take in a Geodude I caught at the start of the game. I'll just have Geodude raise its own defense until either the match ends or it gets fainted. These are our stats. Our level 62 Armaldo, and our level 11 Geodude. The battle begins. John and Geodude are out against a Xatu and a Claydol. I hit Claydol for some fair damage with Water Gun, but Geodude gets taken down immediately from a Psychic attack. We take some damage from Earthquake, then feint Xatu next round with Ancient Power. Lunatone comes out, but we finish off Claydol with Slash. Next out is Solrock. We hit it with Water Gun as it sets up Sunny Day, and Lunatone sets up Calm Mind. Then we hit Lunatone with an Ancient Power. Lunatone falls to low health, but heals with its berry. We then finish off Solrock, as Lunatone finally puts us to sleep with Hypnosis. I wasn't worried at first because of the level difference, but Lunatone does a lot of damage with its psychic attacks. Thankfully, we woke up on our second turn of sleep, and won the match with a final Ancient Power, winning us the Mind Badge. As I leave the gym, a local sailor tells me that Team Aqua was recently humiliated in Lily Cove City. Darn right they were. The sailor also mentions that another troublesome group, Team Magma, have been causing trouble locally, so I go to sort them out. Whilst dealing with Team Magma, John grows to level 64 and is able to learn Rock Blast. However, because Ancient Power's higher accuracy and its potential stat benefits, I instead decide not to teach John Rock Blast. Instead, I increase the number of times John can use Ancient Power per battle. I then teamed up with Stephen Stone again to take down Team Magma's leader. As a thank you for our help, Stephen gives me the HM for Dive, and then May calls us to tell us she's in Pacific Log Town, so I set sail for there next. Turns out, there's basically nothing there, so I looked up a guide. Yes, a guide. And turns out that Dive HM I was given is needed to progress the story. In the middle of the sea, it seems. Well, we made our way through this cave only to find Archie, Team Aqua's leader, trying to wake up what is basically Poseidon in Pokemon form. And what do you know? Waking a god impromptu from its slumber pisses it off. So it pisses it down. Still, I sure am glad all the responsible adults abandoned a 10-year-old kid in a small island in the middle of the sea during a flood. We head to Sutopolis City and basically watch the plot resolve itself in front of us. Then I finally get to take on the 8th and final gym. Hoenn, the leader of the gym, uses water types, so I swap John's held Mystic Water for a Quick Claw, just in case he has any super fast Pokemon. Because of our level difference though, the battle goes really smoothly. Hoenn uses Hyper Potions on his Crawdaunt and Kingdra, but we manage to take out his whole team with over half our health remaining. In beating Hoenn, we collect the 8th and final gym badge and the TM for Water Pulse, a direct upgrade to John's water attack, so I teach it him. We make our way to Victory Road, and on our way through, Wally challenges us to a battle. His team is all a one-hit sweep, except for his Steel-type Magneton. We still don't have a good answer for Steel-type Pokemon, but back in Sutopolis, I picked up the move Brick Break, which I can teach John in place of Metal Claw. This should be super effective against both Steel types and Dark types, both of which we haven't had an answer for so far. We finally make it to the Pokemon League at level 73. These are our stats. I think if we're smart about our move choice, we can clear the Elite Four. I don't know what Pokemon types they use, but I do know that Wallace is the champion in this game, and that he's another water type user. Let's give it a whirl. First up was Sydney. I took one look at his design and thought he was definitely a fire type trainer, so swapped John's Quick Claw back to the Mystic Water. Turns out he's actually a Dark type trainer, and his whole team was a one-hit sweep with Brick Break. What do you know? The next trainer, though, wasn't so easy. Phoebe's a Ghost-type trainer, so half our moves can't even hit her, and we're confused and cursed very early on. We didn't make it past her first Pokemon. On our second attempt at Phoebe, we baited out her Protect, then took her first Dusclops down. We confused her second Dusclops with Water Pulse, and took it out in 3 turns. After that, the rest of her team was a sweep with Ancient Power. I healed up John and restored his power points, before heading to face the next trainer, Glacier, the Ice-type trainer. Her Walrein was able to withstand one attack, and took us to nearly half health with one Surf, but the rest of her team were knocked out in 1 turn. Still, if one Surf attack is that strong against us, we may need more than one run at Wallace. Last of the Elite Four is Dragon Trainer Drake. He sends out Shelgon first and lowers our speed with a Rock Tomb. We take Shelgon out, only to be washed out by his Kingdra using Surf. Bummer. I reload to before the fight and replace Slash with Return, a move whose power is based on friendship. Hopefully, after all our travelling, this will be a more powerful move than the one I just replaced. Also, I swapped the Mystic Water item for the Quick Claw again. Second attempt doesn't go much better. We still have our speed reduced by Shelgon, and despite taking down Kingdra, we then immediately fall to Drake's Salamence. On our 5th pass, Drake finally yielded. Kingdra used Smokescreen instead of Surf. We took out both his Salamence and Altaria, and Flygon's Earthquake attacks did surprisingly little damage to us. Considering we ended the battle with only 15 health though, it's time to heal up. Lastly was Wallace, the champion. These are our stats. It's not that I don't think we can overpower him, it's just that I think we're going to fight an endurance battle. First out was Wailord, who landed a Blizzard against us for minor damage. We took it out in 2 turns. Ludicolo is out second, but we took it out without injury, so we sent out Gyarados. We managed to boost all our stats from Ancient Power, and then slowly battled our way through his whole team, until finally we reached his Wish Cache. We take it to red health, but we're so low ourselves that we get fainted. That was so close. I think if I change my strategy just a little, we can win this. I reload the save, and swap John's Quick Claw for a Citrus Berry. Hopefully this will give us the extra health boost we'll need. It starts off the same. We take out Wailord in exchange for a Blizzard attack. Ludicolo goes down without damaging us, and then Gyarados is out. We take Gyarados down eventually, but our attack's power's been lowered, and we're now facing Milotic, Wallace's tank. Milotic spends several turns just using Recovery, so I take the time to try and boost our stats back up with Ancient Power, to no avail. Eventually, John takes down both Milotic and Tentacruel, and we're facing Wish Cache again, this time with closer to half health. We endure a Surf, but it takes just 2 turns for John to win us the battle, getting us into the Hall of Fame. As the credits roll, there is one final challenge. Steven, the chap who we've ran into a couple times on our journey, is the Pokemon champion from the game before this, and an optional post-game fight. He's our final mark. Fitting really, as the Burgess Shale from which the first Radiodont fossils were found is part of the Steven Formation in the Canadian Rockies. Different spellings of course, but I just thought it was a neat connection to end the video on. I actually checked what Steven's team was before I battled him, and I am not hopeful at our current level. His team are all around the same level as we are, and his first Pokemon is Skarmory, a Pokemon we have no super effective moves against, and that can poison us. This is exactly what happened on my first attempt, by the way. For my next attempt, I gave John the 4 rare candies we'd collected earlier, just to see if that would help much. Turns out Steel Wing is even more dangerous to us than Toxic is. We fall fast. Again. It's not until our 4th attempt that we get past Skarmory, and even then we're only at 64 health. Easily enough for Steven's Cradilly to finish us. I come back to face Steven at level 92. Then I came back again at level 93. Finally, we come to face Steven at level 99. It starts off strong. Skarmory lays down spikes, a move useless in a 1v6, then follows it with Toxic, which we nullify with John's held berry. After the 3rd round, Skarmory faints and Steven switches to Cradilly. We get confused and spend several turns suffering because of it, until eventually John lands a Brick Break to send Cradilly down. Steven's Armaldo is out next. I don't think there's any evidence of radiodonts fighting each other, but according to this simulation, John wins every time. We reach level 100 as Claydol comes out, quickly falls, and is replaced by Metagross. This is where most of our attempts so far have gone badly. If we aren't poisoned by Skarmory, that is. John leads with a Brick Break, dodges a Meteor Mash, lands an Ancient Power, then dodges another. Steven then uses a full restore on Metagross, keeping Metagross in the fight as John lands a critical Ancient Power, which raises all of his stats as well. 1 Brick Break was all that was then needed to finish Metagross. Finally, having leveled up to level 100, we finally get to meet Steven's last Pokemon, Aggron. I literally took a minute to breathe when this happened. We lay in 1 Water Pulse, it's super effective, we beat the run. That was so much fun. During the run, there were 48 total faints from John, 30 against main story trainers, with Watson fating John the most, 3 against random overworld trainers, 15 during the post-game, 14 against Steven, 1 against Drake, 1 heroic sacrifice, and a meme song. It came about due to some weird circumstances, but one of the big inspirations for making this into a video was Madrybread, an awesome content creator who has been making Pokemon Challenge videos for well over a year now. If I may recommend another one of their series though, I personally am a big fan of his playthrough of the Hitman games. It really got me into that series. If you'd like to see more Pokemon content similar to this on my channel though, where we break down the science and inspiration behind the Pokemons, please leave a like and a comment on this video. Or watch the meme song I just mentioned. I promise Armaldo and Deltarune are a better combination than they sound. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.